Hi, it's Carly, and today I'm going to be doing my oral summary on the reproductive system development and really touching base on the hormone production and how this relates to male and female reproductive systems. So today I'm going to be talking about male and female reproductive systems and how those relate to one another, and go into a couple more minor details. Earlier this week for class, we had to make a comic book series on this topic as well, so I might relate back to this a little bit, but this assignment is a little bit different, and I'm going to try and keep this pretty short and straight to the point. So first we're going to talk about the male reproductive system, and the hypothalamus is what starts this whole process, and this secretes gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH, to the anterior pituitary gland, which will then secrete LH for luteinizing hormone and FSH, which is our follicle-stimulating hormone. So I have my little reference sheet here just to kind of keep me on track and jog my memory if I need it. So let's start with LH. So the luteinizing hormone in males is going to go to the testes, and specifically the interstitial cells of the testes, which is going to secrete testosterone, which is pretty much the main character for the male reproductive system. So what does testosterone do? It drives spermatogenesis. It is the main production stimulator for male reproductive organs, secondary sex characteristics such as hair growth, muscle growth, bone growth. Also, I did some research and vocal cord thickness and size, which explains the difference in like how deep your voice is, your larynx size. And also, this is a anabolic hormone, which is similar to estrogen in females. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. Now, FSH will also go to the testes. This specifically goes to the seminiferous tubules. And that's where I refer back to this, because when I was doing this assignment, and I was looking at the spermatogonia in the primary spermatocyte, during the cell division here, I was like, oh, what happens to the spermatogonia? Like, it didn't really go into detail about what happens, with the spermatogonia. It really only talked about the primary spermatocyte and the division and like meiosis of this. Here's where I found this out. So the spermatogonia in this, so let me rephrase this. The cells that don't go through spermatogenesis will secrete androgen binding protein, or ABP for short, which enhances the binding of the sperm cells to testosterone. So this stimulates more spermatogenesis. So that's the main part of that protein. There's a third one, which is called inhibin. So inhibin is released in relation to or linear to the amount of sperm cells that there are. So if you have a lot of spermatogenesis, you have a lot of sperm cells, your inhibin is going to go up, and what inhibin does is it inhibits FSH. So FSH, if we go back, it's what is kind of, this is like full circle here. The FSH is what is stimulating the seminiferous tubules to secrete this androgen binding protein, which will then cause the sperm cells to bind to the testosterone, which was secreted by the interstitial cells from the production of LH, or LH secretion. So if you have a lot of sperm cells, have a lot of production, your inhibin is high, then it's going to tell your FSH to slow it down a bit, and vice versa. So if there's not a lot of sperm cell production, there's not a lot of inhibin, then your FSH is going to try to stimulate that spermatogenesis to get there. So that is pretty much the main portion for the male. So going into the female, similarity, hypothalamus, gonadotropin releasing hormone, is secreted to anterior pituitary, which secretes LH and FSH, which we talked about. So for the females, I'm actually going to start with FSH. So our follicle stimulating hormone goes to the ovaries. This causes a development of granulosa cells in the ovum, which produce estrogen. And estrogen is like our main character for the females. So this is also like similar to testosterone, is systemic. It stimulates the primary female genitalia, internal and external, and the development of secondary sex characteristics such as breast development, bone growth, specifically like pelvic bones, and your hip bones when females like hips start to get wider. Bone growth I told you about, hair growth, and then I saw when I did some research that a form of estrogen in estradiol contributes to female libido. And again, this is anabolic like testosterone is. Moving over to LH, our luteinizing hormone, this stimulates ovulation in females, changes the granulosa cells into luteal cells in the second half of the menstrual cycle, and secretes progesterone, which is important and is the hormone that regulates the endometrium. So when I say the second half of the menstrual cycle, when you're having your endometrial shedding or your menses, the progesterone is responsible for this. So I kind of talked about the similarities a little bit. I'll reiterate that it all starts with the hypothalamus. It releases gonadotropin releasing hormone to the anterior pituitary. It secretes LH and FSH in both males and females, and it just depends on whether or not you're male or female for whether like the testes will secrete the testosterone and the androgen binding protein, your inhibin, or if you're female, you have ovaries, then your progesterone and estrogen. I touched base on this. The estrogen and testosterone are anabolic, so they both contribute to growth of bones. And I did some research. Estrogen has a quicker stopping point on long bones and epiphyses, so it makes sense that females are smaller than males because of this, and that males, the testosterone doesn't have that quick stopping point for the bone growth, so they're going to be taller. Same with muscle growth. They're going to have larger muscles. Other hormones, I did some more research with the adrenal cortex and the release of androgens, and I saw that the androgens can cause increased secretion of sebum, leading to acne, and this occurs in males and females. So the big question is what starts this whole process? And there's a little bit of research out there that says that gonadotropin releasing hormone, like what stimulates that? What starts the hypothalamus to secrete that? And there isn't really a direct answer. Some people think that it's linked to growth, like you're finally old enough and big enough, and now this GnRH is starting to be released and your body is big enough to undergo puberty. And the reason why this is linked together is also because they see in studies of malnutrition that puberty is prolonged for those who are malnourished. So they think it has something to do with growth and maturity. And so, yeah, so that is most of what I was going to touch base on. I would like to refer back to a video that I watched on YouTube by Dr. John Campbell and his video on puberty and hormonal development, which I will attach the link to as well, just because our book and the video in our labs touched base on these things, but I don't think that it went quite as in depth as what we were asked to do in this assignment. So I did do some further research. So I hope that's okay. I will link this below. And again, sorry that the Screencast-O-Matic that we were supposed to use for this assignment wasn't working for me. So I recorded this video a couple other times, but I will put this on my YouTube and I will link this, and hopefully this works out. So thank you so much for listening.